She was only 7 years old when she vanished. Her sister was just 4. That July afternoon, the Morrison family had gathered at their North Carolina holiday home for a summer picnic. The sun hung high, warming the tall pines that framed the property. The girls had been playing in the grass just a few feet away, laughing, cartwheeling. Sophie, the older one, was teaching little Emma how to kick her legs up high. Emma's attempts ended in tangled limbs and giggles. Sophie had called it training. It was perfect, idyllic. Too perfect, in retrospect. Their parents, June and Marcus, were only gone for minutes back and forth between the picnic site and the car, gathering the cooler and folding chairs. No more than 10, maybe 15 minutes. That's all it took. When they returned to the blanket, the grass was still swaying. The laughter was gone, so were the girls. At first, they assumed the girls had wandered, maybe playing hide and seek, maybe exploring the tree line nearby. They called out gently, then louder, then screaming, "Sophie! Emma!" No answer. The woods swallowed their names. By the time police arrived, the forest was already alive with panic. Dogs, drones, volunteers from 3 counties. Search lines combed the area for weeks. But nothing turned up. No torn fabric. No footprints. No thermos. No ribbons. Just silence. And silence has a way of calcifying over time, turning confusion into despair, hope into quiet acceptance. The file on Sophie and Emma Morrison went cold. For 14 years, until the phone rang. It was early when June Morrison picked up. Too early. The sun barely touched the windows. She was holding her morning coffee when she saw the unfamiliar number on the screen. A quiet, shapeless dread settled into her stomach. "Mrs. Morrison," the voice said, "this is Detective Harrison, Forest County Police. I need you to come to the station. It's about your daughters." The mug slipped from her hand and shattered against the tile. Coffee pooled around her bare feet. Her husband, Marcus, appeared in the doorway, alarmed. She met his eyes, and without a word he knew. That language of long grief unspeakable and instant. They had waited 14 years for this. On the drive to the station, June's mind reeled backward. She saw the girls again. Sophie in her green gingham dress, the one that flared when she spun. Emma clutching her stuffed rabbit like a talisman. Sophie had her stainless steel thermos covered in butterfly stickers she insisted on placing herself. She had been so proud of that bottle. Wouldn't let Emma touch it, said she made it sticky. The memories returned in shards. The sandwiches, the shade, the way the forest seemed still, even back then. The kind of stillness that feels like it's watching you. They arrived at the station, and Detective Harrison was waiting. He was younger than the original detective, but there was something familiar in his eyes, that practiced calm, that undercurrent of sympathy. He led them down a hallway to a small conference room. On the table, a sealed evidence box. 3 days ago, he began. A blogger named Mike Garrett was in the forest with his metal detector. He runs a treasure-hunting channel, documents old finds, relics, coins. He was in the old-growth section near your property. Harrison laid down a photo. The metal detector screen displayed a reading 99, red, high, exceptionally high. He thought it was something valuable, the detective continued, spent hours digging, but what he found wasn't treasure. With gloved hands, Harrison pulled a clear evidence bag from the box. Inside, a stainless steel thermos bottle, dirty, weathered, but unmistakable. June gasped. Her hand trembled as she reached for the bag. "That's Sophie's," she whispered. "Her thermos. She had it at the picnic. She was so proud of it." Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "There were also fragments of fabric," Harrison said gently. "Green gingham, the same pattern as Sophie's dress." He paused, letting the weight settle. "We recovered partial remains. Enough for identification. Dental records confirm it's Sophie." The words knocked the wind from the room. June's sobs came from far away, distant, as though her body were reacting without her. Marcus wrapped his arms around her, but she could barely feel the pressure. Her daughter, her bright, bossy Sophie, had been in the ground for over a decade. Not miles away. Not in another state, but right there. just miles from where they'd been searching. For years. This changes everything, Harrison said. It's no longer a missing persons case. It's a homicide investigation. He looked at Marcus. Was there any sign of Emma? Marcus asked, voice cracking. Not at that site, but we're expanding the search immediately. If there's anything to find, we'll find it. You think she could still be alive? June asked quietly. We can't rule anything out, Harrison replied. That's why I'm asking you both to stay in the area. Revisit the property. Go through your memories. With this new evidence, something might come back. June looked at her husband. We still have the holiday home, Marcus said. We never sold it. Couldn't bring ourselves to. Then that's a good place to start, Harrison said, and thank you for being willing. They returned to the home that afternoon. The gravel crunched under their tires as the cabin emerged between the trees. It looked unchanged, frozen in time. The wraparound porch, the tire swing, the old maple tree. Marcus parked, and they sat in silence. Then June opened the door. The air inside was musty, heavy with the weight of everything left behind. Dust clung to the furniture. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating motes dancing in the stillness. It was exactly as they'd left it. The photos still lined the mantel. Sophie missing her front teeth, Emma covered in frosting. A beach trip castles in the sand, wild hair in the wind. In the kitchen, June stopped cold. Emma's crayon drawings still clung to the refrigerator. Stick figures labeled Mama, Dada, Soph. A house with huge flowers. A crooked sun smiling over it all. She touched one, her fingers tracing the waxy lines. Outside, Marcus called gently. The ranger station was waiting. They needed to check in. Teams were already assembling. The station had changed since last they'd seen it. Now it was a base of operations. News vans, tape, maps taped to tables, volunteers pouring coffee, police radios chattering. And standing in the middle of it all, Park Ranger Tom Mitchell. June froze. He hadn't changed much. Older, grayer. But still the same posture. Still the same way of inserting himself into every conversation. He'd been the last person to see the girls. 14 years ago, Mitchell had made his rounds through the picnic area then again during the search, offering advice, suggesting patterns, pushing people away from certain areas. And now, June noticed he was doing it again. She watched as he directed teams away from the northern forest. Too dangerous, he said. Old mining shafts. But June remembered. There were no shafts, just dense woods, and Sophie's favorite climbing rocks. She pulled Harrison aside. That ranger? She whispered. He did this before. He's steering people away. Same as last time. Harrison listened carefully. He knows the forest better than anyone, he said. He's been helping organize the search. Exactly, June replied. He knew our routines, our picnic habits, everything. Even back then, he asked odd questions. Too interested. Did he ever do anything directly suspicious? No, but it was a feeling, June said. And now seeing him again. Before she could continue, Mitchell appeared behind them. June Morrison, he said, voice soft. I heard you were back. I'm so sorry about Sophie. I think about your girls every day. He reached for her arm. June pulled back instinctively. Mitchell's expression flickered. Let me know if there's anything I can do, he said. In fact, I could show you where they were last seen. Sometimes revisiting the site helps jog memories. That's kind, Marcus interjected, appearing beside her. But we're not ready for that yet. Mitchell nodded, but his eyes lingered. I'm always here, he said before walking away. June's voice dropped to a whisper. There's something wrong with him. I felt it then. I feel it now. Marcus nodded slowly. I know. But until we have something solid, we watch. And wait. She turned back to the maps. Mitchell was still directing teams, still avoiding the same northern grid. The place they had hiked with the girls. The place no one had ever really searched. The forest hadn't changed, but something under it had just started to wake up. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting narrow golden lines across the hardwood floors of the old holiday home. June stood by the kitchen sink. refilling the coffee pot for what felt like the 100th time in 24 hours. Her body moved on autopilot, but her mind was somewhere else, buried in the dirt with Sophie, or tangled in the question that had begun to fester and throb inside her like an open wound. Where was Emma? She heard the car door before she saw it. A slam. Then the crunch of boots on gravel. She looked out the window. Daniel. Her younger brother climbed out of his SUV, eyes red-rimmed and face pale, but determined. He had driven 6 hours through the night. June met him at the door, and he didn't hesitate. He pulled her into a fierce hug before she even said a word. "I dropped everything as soon as I heard," he said, voice rough. "I can't believe they found Sophie, but Emma, there's still hope for Emma, right?" June nodded against his shoulder. It was strange how her body still found comfort in his presence. Daniel had always been the fun uncle, the one with magic tricks, too many presents, bedtime stories longer than necessary, the kind of man kids adored. "They think she might still be alive," June said softly. "That someone might have kept her, raised her. Detective Harrison said they're expanding the search immediately." "Then we're going to find her," Daniel replied. "Whatever it takes. Arsène." By noon, the holiday home transformed from a tomb of grief into something else, a command center, a hive of purpose. More family arrived. Cousins. Marcus's sister from the coast. Old friends who'd joined the original search effort. June's aunt commandeered the kitchen, organizing meals for the volunteers. Neighbors dropped off casseroles and jugs of iced tea. Someone brought folding tables. Another, printer paper and walkie-talkies. In the dining room, a large map of the surrounding forest was unrolled and taped to the table. It was marked with grid coordinates and assigned search teams. Yellow stickers tracked where volunteers had already combed. Red lines marked areas of interest. That afternoon, they returned to the ranger station for the daily briefing. Detective Harrison stood at the center, surrounded by volunteers and officers. Daniel positioned himself near the front, arms crossed, eyes focused. "We discovered Sophie's remains here," Harrison said, pointing to a spot on the enlarged map. "We're now expanding outward, paying close attention to old-growth areas. These are sections with thick canopy, minimal foot trafficless, likely to be disturbed." Daniel raised his hand. "What metal detector settings picked up the thermos?" he asked. Harrison blinked. "Excuse me?" "The blogger," Daniel said. "What was he using? Discrimination mode? Sensitivity level? Frequency?" There was a pause. Then Harrison nodded slowly. "According to the footage, he was in discrimination mode, targeting non-ferrous metals. Reading showed 99. "That's extremely high," Daniel said. "Stainless steel would do that. Do we have other detectors? Different settings could pick up smaller metallic objects. Buttons, zippers, jewelry." "Yes," Harrison said. "We've secured several types of units. Trained operators will deploy them where needed." June watched the exchange with rising admiration and unease. Her brother was methodical, precise. While others wept and fumbled through emotion, Daniel approached the crisis like a puzzle to solve. And then she noticed something else. Park Ranger Mitchell was watching them. He stood a few yards away by a makeshift command table, pretending to shuffle papers. But his eyes weren't on the search grids. They were on Daniel. When volunteer teams began selecting their sectors, Daniel stepped forward. "I'll take Section 9-7, he said, pointing to a section in the far north, dense, remote, and previously dismissed. Mitchell reacted instantly. "That area's rough terrain," he warned. "Unstable footing, some old shafts and sinkholes, not recommended for civilians." "I'm a certified hiker," Daniel replied. "Used to lead college expeditions. I'll be fine." Other volunteers had already begun signing up for nearby areas. The momentum carried forward. Mitchell hesitated, clearly frustrated, but couldn't stop the assignment. June leaned closer to Marcus. "Why doesn't he want anyone in that area?" The next morning began early. Dawn was barely a suggestion in the sky when June joined Daniel's team, along with Marcus and several extended family members. They moved through the woods in a slow, methodical line arms, length apart, heads down, eyes sweeping the undergrowth for any hint of fabric, metal, bones. 3 hours passed. Then a voice called out, I found something. A volunteer named Carol stood over a low-hanging branch. Caught in it, a faded pink ribbon, worn and stained, but still intact. Everyone converged on the spot. Daniel knelt beside it, examining the frayed ends. "Could this be Emma's?" he asked. "Junito, you remember her wearing ribbons?" "She did," June said slowly. "But I don't know if this was hers. It could have been from anyone, any time." "Still," Daniel said, "we bag it, we document everything." A police photographer stepped in. Evidence bags were opened. And then June noticed something else. Ranger Mitchell had appeared again, despite being assigned a different quadrant. He stood just beyond the clearing, watching them with an unreadable expression. He offered a faint smile when their eyes met. Then, just as quickly, he turned and disappeared into the trees. "Marcus," June whispered. "He's following us, Mitchell. Every time we move he shows up. Isn't that strange?" Marcus didn't respond immediately. He was watching Daniel, who had stepped away and was now pacing near the tree line, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, tense. June couldn't hear the conversation, but the body language said enough hand on hip, running through his hair, turning away from the group. Eventually, he hung up and returned. "Hey," Daniel said casually, "I need to make a supply run. Town's not far, and we're running low on bottled water and first aid." "I'll come with you," Marcus offered. Daniel waved him off. "No need, it'll be faster alone. Besides, you should stay with June. I've got a few work calls to make anyway." June watched him walk away. And then, as he vanished toward the parking area, she felt it again, that sense of something not quite right. She turned toward the forest edge and saw Mitchell standing there, radio in hand, watching Daniel's SUV disappear into the trees. That afternoon, June made her own trip into town. The search teams were burning through supplies. She needed to stock up gauze, aspirin, snacks. As she pulled into the shopping center, her heart skipped. Daniel's SUV was already there, but not near the entrance. He'd parked at the back of the lot, reversed in, as if positioned for a quick getaway. She frowned. He had said he was driving home 40 minutes away for work. So why was he here? June parked and walked inside. She expected to find him in the snack aisle grabbing granola bars. Instead, she found him at the pharmacy counter, basket overflowing at his feet. She stopped behind a display of vitamins and watched. Feminine hygiene products, large packages, several boxes, bottled antiseptic, gauze, bandages, protein bars, bottled water. "Third big purchase this week," the pharmacist said. "Stocking a shelter?" "Something like that," Daniel replied. "Hurricane season coming up. Just like to be prepared." The pharmacist raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. June stepped back, her pulse hammering. Why would he need so many of those products? He lived alone. Had since the divorce. What was he preparing for? "Will that be all?" the pharmacist asked. Daniel reached for his wallet. That's when he saw her. His face shifted in an instant. Surprise. Panic. Then a tight, forced smile. "June! What are you doing here?" She walked toward him slowly. "Getting supplies for the search teams. Saw your car. Thought I'd check in." She glanced at the bags. "That's a lot?" Daniel's face reddened. "Oh, a donation. Women's shelter. They put out a list of needs. You know me. Always trying to help." But the lie was clumsy. It hovered between them like a stain. "I really need to run," he added quickly. "Work call. Can't miss it." He fumbled with his bags, nearly dropping one. When he bent to pick it up, the hatch on his SUV opened. June's breath caught. Inside, new padlocks, still in packaging. Yellow rope, more water, more antiseptic. A plastic tarp. Daniel threw the bags in and slammed the door, then peeled out of the lot, tires screeching. That night, back at the house, June picked at her dinner while Marcus talked about the day's search. She barely heard him. "Daniel was acting strange," she said suddenly. Marcus paused. "Strange how?" She told him everything. The supplies, the bulk purchases, the way he fled. Marcus tried to reason. Maybe he's dating someone, maybe it's all innocent. He asked about DNA, June said, and yesterday about evidence collection, chain of custody. He's obsessed with police procedure. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached for her hand. You're exhausted. We all are. Just don't jump to conclusions. But as June lay in bed that night, the images wouldn't leave her. The padlocks, the tarp, Daniel's guilty expression. Everyone had been watching Mitchell. But what if they'd been looking in the wrong direction all along? June lay awake long after midnight. The house creaked softly around her, the distant rustling of trees like whispers on the wind. Marcus was fast asleep, his breathing slow and steady beside her. But June couldn't shut her eyes. Every time she did, she saw Daniel's face at the pharmacy cot, cornered and smiling too quickly. She rolled over and reached for her phone. Scrolling through old photos, she searched for something any that might help her make sense of it all. Birthdays, vacations, barbecues at the holiday home. In photo after photo, Daniel appeared. 4th of July. Easter egg hunts. Uninvited, unannounced, always in the background, always just close enough. He had been around more than she remembered. She turned the phone toward Marcus, gently shaking his shoulder. Marcus, wake up. He stirred. What is it? I can't stop thinking about Daniel. Something's not right. Marcus sat up slowly. You're talking about the pharmacy again. It's more than that, June said. He's been asking about police dogs, about DNA. He told everyone he's allergic to dogs, but he had a German Shepherd for years. She showed him the photos. Look, she said. He knew our schedule. He knew when we were here where the girls like to play. What if... She stopped. Couldn't say it. Marcus held her gaze. You're saying you think he took them? I don't want to believe it, but he's hiding something. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Marcus nodded slowly. Let's go see him. First thing in the morning. Just talk. If there's a simple explanation, we'll know. June exhaled, her chest tight. Okay. But morning didn't wait for them. It arrived with the phone ringing off the hook. Marcus answered, groggy. Hello? June watched as his posture straightened. What? Yes, I can come in, but I don't understand. Evidence about what? He covered the phone and looked at June. They want me at the station. Something about work connections. From 14 years ago. They said it's sensitive. Both of us? Number, just me. He dressed quickly, kissed her forehead, and was gone. June stood in the doorway and watched his car disappear down the gravel path. Then she turned toward her own keys. She couldn't wait. Not anymore. She drove to Daniel's house in silence, the pine trees thickening around her as the road narrowed. He lived on 5 wooded acres, a gift from their father, the kind of property that guaranteed total privacy. She pulled into the driveway, stomach twisting. Daniel answered in pajamas, surprised. June? What are you doing here? We need to talk. Second. He hesitated, then stepped aside. Of course, come in, I'll make tea. The house looked normal. Family photos still hung in the hallway. Birthday cakes. Beach vacations. Daniel with the girls on his lap. But June's eyes were drawn to the counter near his laptop. Receipts. She moved closer. Padlocks. Foam insulation. Soundproofing panels. Industrial bleach. Plastic sheeting. Lye. And then she saw it. Through the window, at the far end of the property, an old storm bunker, half concealed by brush. Their father had built it in the 60s. Daniel had once called it a hazard, said he'd sealed it. But the path to it was cleared, the brush recently trimmed. Find something interesting? Daniel asked behind her. She turned, startled. He stood too close, too still. These were just sitting here, she said, gesturing to the receipts. You were always too nosy, he said, voice flat. Just like that day, at the picnic. What? You should have been watching them, but you were busy, cleaning up, making everything perfect. His hand moved to the knife block. Daniel, what are you talking about? They were beautiful, June. So innocent. I watched them grow. Sophie was difficult. But Emma... He smiled then, a soft, terrifying smile. She was young enough to forget. To start over. I became her whole world. June backed toward the door. I need to call Marcus. And Daniel lunged, blocking hair. You're not going anywhere. He grabbed a knife and shoved her forward, pressing the blade against her ribs. You wanted answers, he said. Let me show you. He forced her across the yard toward the bunker. The air was cold, the path narrow. He fumbled with a heavy padlock, then yanked the door open. Stale air poured out. June hesitated. Move, Daniel said, pressing the knife harder. She descended the concrete stairs into darkness. Battery-powered LEDs glowed faintly along the walls. Her foot hit the floor, and her breath stopped. The space had been turned into a room, a toilet in the corner, a cot with restraints, canned food, bottled water, blankets. And in the far corner a young woman sat huddled. Uncle Danny, she said, who is that? I don't like strangers. June fell to her knees. Even with matted hair, hollow cheeks, and oversized clothes, she knew that face. Emma, she whispered. Emma Hill. How do you know my name? She asked. Uncle Danny says no one knows about me. I'm his secret special girl. The bunker door slammed above them. The padlock clicked. Daniel was pacing now. Upstairs. Back and forth. June turned back to her daughter. She moved slowly, inching closer. Emma, sweetheart. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Uncle Danny doesn't like when I talk to strangers, Emma whispered. I'm supposed to stay in my corner. June felt her heart breaking, piece by piece. I'm not a stranger, she said softly. She stopped. The words wouldn't come. Emma flinched when she reached out. No touching, she said. Only Uncle Danny. I'm his. The words were broken, childlike, trained. She had been kept in this place for 14 years. Rebuilt. Conditioned. Above them, the door creaked. Daniel descended again. Calm now. Resigned. He carried a poly tarp. Rope. It's time to go, he said. We're going to the forest. Emma brightened slightly. To see the birds? Yes. Just like I promised. He moved toward her with a small vial in hand. First, the sleepy medicine. Number. June stood. You're not touching her. Daniel glared. She's too old now. She's ruined. But I kept her as long as I could. He grabbed Emma and dragged her toward the stairs. She didn't resist. I should have let her go years ago, he muttered, when she started developing. But I was weak. I thought I could keep her pure. He looked over his shoulder. I buried Sophie on purpose. So you'd find her, so you'd stop looking. June lunged. She hit him hard, sending him stumbling. The knife in his belt clattered to the floor. She grabbed it, ran for the stairs. Daniel was close behind. She burst into the house, knife in hand. The landline sat on the counter. She dialed. 911? What's your emergency? My name is June Morrison. I'm at 445 Woodside Drive Ive. My daughter Emma is here. She's alive. My brother Daniel took her. He's fleeing in a black SUV. Please hurry. Daniel skidded to a stop in the doorway. The dispatcher was still on the line, asking questions. But June kept shouting the address. Daniel ran. The SUV engine roared to life. June dropped the phone and raced back to the bunker. Emma stood in the stairwell, blinking into the light. Where did Uncle Danny go? He's gone, June said. You're safe now. Emma looked confused. He said we were going to see the birds. June gathered her into her arms. You're safe, she whispered again and again. You're safe. Sirens filled the air. Police cars screamed into the driveway. Officers surrounded the house. Detective Harrison was first through the door. Is this Emma? He asked, stunned. Emma stared at him. Is Uncle Danny mad at me? They brought her into the sunlight. She winced, raising a hand to her face. A medic approached carefully. You've been very brave, he said. Emma blinked. Uncle Danny says I'm brave when I take my medicine. Marcus's car pulled in moments later. He jumped out, breathless. And when he saw Emma live standing, he fell to his knees. "Emma," he sobbed. She tilted her head. "Who is that man? Why is he crying?" June held her tighter. "Because he's your father," she whispered, "and you're home now." The hospital hallway was humming with quiet urgency as June sat beside her daughter's bed, the sharp antiseptic scent clinging to everything. Fluorescent lights cast an artificial glow, softening Emma's features but not erasing what had been done to her. She lay there, hands curled at her sides, eyes half-lidded from the mild sedation. There was a haunted stillness to her, as if she was present in body only, her mind trapped somewhere unreachable. June hadn't let go of her hand in over an hour. When they'd arrived, nurses had tried to separate them for treatment, but June had insisted on staying near. The last time she let someone else watch her daughters, they vanished. She wasn't going to make that mistake again. "Mrs. Morrison," a calm voice said from the doorway. A petite woman in a slate-blue sweater stepped inside. Her ID badge read, "Dr. Asha Patel, Trauma Psychology." "I'd like to speak with Emma, if that's okay. Just a short evaluation." June stood reluctantly. "Will I be able to stay?" "You can wait right outside," Dr. Patel said gently. "I promise I'll come get you immediately if she becomes distressed." June nodded. She bent over, brushing a strand of hair away from Emma's forehead. "I'm right here," she whispered. Emma didn't flinch, but she didn't react either. From the hallway, June heard bits of the conversation. "Emma, I'm Asha. I'm here to make sure you're okay. I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." "I understand. But you're safe now. Uncle Danny says strangers lie." End quote. "Has anyone ever sung to you, Emma? A lullaby?" There was a pause. Then Emma's voice, small and confused. "Sometimes. In dreams. A lady sings something soft, but Uncle Danny says dreams are poison." June closed her eyes, chest tightening. It was the lullaby, the one she'd sung every night until they disappeared. The song about the mockingbird and the diamond ring. She thought it was gone. But somewhere, buried beneath the trauma, Emma remembered. Hours passed. Detective Harrison arrived just after dusk. He looked tired, but alert. "We got him," he said simply. June's breath caught. "Daniel?" "Picked up at a rest stop, just across the state line. Tried to stay calm like nothing was wrong. He's in custody now." "Is he talking?" Harrison nodded grimly. "He's talking a lot." He pulled up a chair. "He's trying to avoid the death penalty, offering information in exchange for life without parole. We've verified enough to know he's telling the truth." And June gripped the edge of the bed. "What did he say?" "He claims he was struggling with impulses, pornography addiction, obsessive thoughts about young girls. He says he never planned to act on them. That visiting the holiday home that day was spontaneous." She clenched her fists. "He used to just show up, no warning. We thought he was lonely. He said he saw the girls playing alone, and it felt like destiny." June felt nausea rise in her throat. "He told them you needed them," Harrison continued, "that you'd sent Uncle Danny to come get them, promised them ice cream. They followed him, without question." "Of course they did," she whispered. "They trusted him." "They were both taken to the bunker initially," Harrison said. "He kept them hidden there. But when we launched that first major search, Daniel panicked. He rented a storage unit in Millerville, moved them there for 3 days until we stopped focusing on the property." End. "A storage unit?" June said. "My babies in a storage unit?" "Climate controlled," Harrison muttered, "as if that makes it better." From the treatment room, Emma's voice filtered out again. "When I dream about the lady who sings, Uncle Danny says I'm sick. He gives me the quiet juice." June's hands shook. Dr. Patel emerged a few moments later. "She's stable," she said, "but fractured, severely conditioned. She refers to Daniel as her protector, her only family. But there are responses to certain words. Mama, Sophie, home. Her heart rate spikes. pupils dilate. The memories are there, but buried. Will she ever remember? It's too early to say. The trauma is deep and long-lasting. We'll need months, maybe years, to deprogram what he did. June sat down hard, tears welling. "There's more," Harrison said carefully. "About Sophie." June's head snapped toward him. She never adjusted, fought constantly, begged to go home. About 4 months in, she broke the lock while Daniel was at work, got out, made it to the woods before he caught her. June buried her face in her hands. "He says it was an accident, hit her with a rock, then buried her near the holiday home. Said the soil there had high iron content, it would set off metal detectors someday. He included the thermos so she'd be identified." "He wanted her found," June said, hollow. "He called it insurance," Harrison replied. "So people would assume both girls were dead, that the case was closed." There was a long silence. Then Marcus appeared in the hallway, breathless. He'd rushed from the station after hearing the news. His face crumpled when he saw June. Then he saw Emma, sedated and still. "Oh, God," he whispered. "Is she—" "She's alive," June said. "But she's not the same." They held each other for a long time. "Daniel was our family," Marcus said. "Not anymore," June whispered. Harrison stood to leave. "One more thing," he said. "Based on his car's content-starps rope, Bleachy was planning to kill her. Probably last night. You showing up at that house, you saved her." June didn't answer. She just sat there, holding Marcus's hand. Later that night, they were allowed to visit Emma again. She lay quietly in her hospital bed, eyes open but unfocused. "Emma," June said softly, "it's Mom and Dad." Emma didn't respond. "I don't have those," she mumbled. "Uncle Danny says I'm special. I only need him." June sat on the edge of the bed, watching her daughter breathe. She reached for her hand, gently. Then she started to hum. The same lullaby. The one from the old days. Emma's expression didn't change, but her breathing slowed. "That song," she whispered, "it makes Uncle Danny mad. He says it's poison." June kept humming. Emma stared at the ceiling. Then her fingers twitched. A squeeze. Barely there. Just a flicker of contact. June froze. Marcus saw it too. Tears filled his eyes. "She knows," he whispered. "Somewhere inside, she knows." "I know that song," Emma murmured. "The lady in my dream sings it. She smells like flowers." "She's not a dream," June whispered. "She's real. I'm real." Emma's eyelids fluttered. Then her fingers closed again, weakly, around her mother's hand. Not strong, but enough. June sat in the hospital cafeteria with a paper cup of coffee growing cold between her hands. Morning sunlight streamed through the large windows, glinting off the vinyl flooring. The events of the past 48 hours had compressed into something surreal, a kaleidoscope of horror, relief, and numb disbelief. Across from her, Marcus stirred a packet of sugar into his tea with mechanical movements. Neither of them had spoken much. What words could possibly exist for this? Their daughter was alive, but she didn't know them, didn't know herself. June took a sip of coffee. It was bitter and thin. It didn't matter. The door opened behind them, and Detective Harrison stepped inside. He looked the same pressed shirt, tired eyes, quiet gravity. But something in his posture had changed. Purpose, maybe. Resolve. "I have the full confession," he said as he approached. "Daniel talked for nearly 6 hours, wanted to explain everything, justifying it in his own way." Marcus shifted in his chair, eyes narrowing. "Why tell us?" "Because I think you deserve to hear it. And because some of what he said, it's not in the official report. But you should know." He laid a folder on the table. Didn't open it. Just stared at it. "He said the first time he ever thought about taking them was at Sophie's 5th birthday. You were all at the house. Said Emma was still in diapers, crawling on the deck, and Sophie was chasing bubbles. He said it looked like a painting. A perfect moment frozen in time." Marcus swallowed hard. "He claims he never meant to act on his fantasies," Harrison continued. "But those visits became more frequent. He memorized your schedule, took mental notes of where the girls played, what toys they had, which dresses they wore. He even admitted to recording their voices during one visit on a handheld tape recorder he kept in his jacket pocket. June gripped the edge of the table until her knuckles turned white. He bought the property from your father knowing the bunker was there, said it felt like fate. He renovated it slowly, insulated it, installed a toilet, battery lights, stocked it with canned goods. It became a ritual for him, preparing for what he still claimed was only a fantasy. But then, Harrison said, that day came. Marcus stared at the table, jaw clenched. The picnic. He was driving back from a job site and decided to check in. That's how he described it. Just check in. He saw the girls playing alone near the tree line. He approached them calmly, told them you needed help packing the car, and had sent him. June shook her head slowly. They didn't even scream. No, Harrison said. He said they walked with him willingly. Sophie even held his hand. Silence fell over the table. He took them straight to the bunker, Harrison went on. Had everything ready? Toys, blankets, a radio, candy. He made it look like a game at first, a secret clubhouse. He told them it was just for a few days. Said he'd spoken to you, that you were fine with it, that they'd see you again soon. He kept them hidden while the search raged on, he said. Claimed he was careful. Soundproofing the bunker, leaving no tracks. But Sophie was different. She kept asking questions, kept trying to leave. She cried for you, screamed sometimes. What did he do to her? June asked, her voice barely audible. He said he sedated her, Harrison replied. Liquid Benadryl mixed with juice. But she fought harder as the weeks passed. Then came the night she broke the lock. Marcus stared at him. He chased her through the woods, Harrison continued. Said she ran toward the road but tripped on a root. He caught up, hit her with a rock, claimed it was panic. Said he buried her in a shallow grave, marked the tree with a stone, and placed her thermos beside her. He called it a sacrifice, Harrison added bitterly, said it was necessary to keep the illusion intact. That if she was found, people would assume both girls had died. It would buy him time. June felt herself slipping into a kind of detached clarity, listening, absorbing, but not feeling. And Emma? She asked. She was quiet, Harrison said. Young, impressionable. After Sophie disappeared, he told her she'd run away, that it proved the outside world was dangerous, that her sister didn't love her enough to stay. He rewrote her memories over and over until she stopped asking. He paused. He gave her new routines, new rules, trained her like a dog, conditioned her to obey. What about school records? Social Security? Medical care? Marcus asked. He forged everything, Harrison said, used homeschooling declarations, claimed she had a rare condition hypersensitivity to light, social anxiety, said that's why she never left the property. And because he lived off the grid, no one questioned it. He even taught her to lie, Harrison said. In the rare event they were seen, she called him Dad. Played the role perfectly. He was preparing to move again, he continued. We found plans in his garage, a storage unit in Tennessee, supplies, maps. He told Emma they were going on a trip, to see birds, to live in the trees. June remembered the way Emma had asked about the birds. Innocent, trusting. What was he going to do? Marcus asked. Kill her, Harrison said quietly. The sedation was prepared, a new tarp in the back seat. Rope, shovel. He decided she was aging out this words. Said she was no longer what he wanted her to be, that she was contaminated by time. He confessed all of this? Yes, Harrison replied. Every detail, including where to find her drawings, hundreds of them, in the bunker, crayon images of a man and a girl in a house underground, always smiling, always in the dark. He believed what he did was love, Harrison added. But it wasn't. It was ownership, control, obsession, and June stood abruptly, chair scraping across the tile. I need to see her, she said. Now. The nurse waved her through. Emma sat in bed, legs pulled up to her chest. She was watching cartoons on mute, Her eyes flicked toward June, but there was no recognition. "Hi, baby," June whispered. Emma didn't respond. "I wanted to show you something," June said. She pulled out an old photo of Emma and Sophie sitting on the porch swing, tangled in each other's arms, laughing. Emma stared. "I remember that," she said softly. June blinked. "You do?" "I don't know where it's from," Emma whispered, "but it feels warm, like something I liked once." She reached out, touched the photo. June felt tears rising again. "I used to sing to you," she said, "at night." "I remember a song," Emma said, "but Uncle Danny said it was poison, that it would hurt me." "It's not," June said. "It's a memory." "Emma, to the hell." "Sing it," she said. So June did. Her voice cracked at first, but the melody came, the same lullaby, the same tune that had rocked Emma to sleep every night before the world broke. Emma closed her eyes, and when June reached for her hand, this time her daughter held on, tightly. Rain had come overnight, soft and persistent, turning the red clay trails behind the Morrison holiday home into slick, winding ribbons of mud. June stood at the back porch just after dawn, wrapped in Marcus's flannel shirt, staring at the swaying pine trees. Somewhere out there, Sophie had cried for her. Somewhere out there, her 7-year-old had run through these woods barefoot, terrified, looking for a way home. And Daniel had chased her. Marcus joined her in silence, steaming mug in hand. They watched the rain together, no words needed. After all, what do you say when the story you'd been telling yourself for 14 years of abduction, of hope, of maybe collapses into something so much worse? Behind them, the house was quiet. The searchers were gone now. The command center was back at the ranger station. The volunteers had dispersed. But June still felt the noise of those days, the chatter, the radios, the movement echoing in the walls. She didn't know what to do with the silence. Detective Harrison called just after breakfast. "There's something you should see," he said. "We're going through everything, all of Daniel's storage units, computer records, journals." June waited. "There's a journal we think was Emma's, or at least dictated by her. It's drawings mostly, but also lists, rules, chores, words she was told to memorize. You should come down. I think it will help you understand how deep this went." June arrived at the station mid-morning. Harrison led her into a quiet room, separate from the bustle of case files and press calls. On the table, a faded spiral notebook, its cover smeared with fingerprints and food stains. She opened it slowly. The first page was a drawing, crude, childlike. A man and a girl standing in front of what looked like a small gray hill with a door clearly meant to be the bunker. Above them, a yellow sun smiled down. Everything was drawn in heavy, pressing strokes. Beneath the drawing, a sentence written in blocky, uneven letters. "Uncle Danny says the world is mean. He keeps me safe." June turned the pages. More drawings. One of a house on fire with big red X's over it. Another of 2 girls, one with an X through her face. Sophie. Rules filled another page. Don't talk to people. Don't go outside unless Uncle Danny says. Don't say the song out loud. Don't ask for the other girl. Don't cry. A tiny handprint was pressed into the next page in blue paint. She was told who she could be, Harrison said quietly. Everything else was erased. "She still remembers," June whispered. "Little pieces. The lullaby. Sophie's name. The beach. It's all in there somewhere." Harrison nodded. "We've brought in trauma specialists from Charlotte. People who deal with long-term conditioning. Emma is cooperating, but cautiously. She still refers to Daniel as her protector. Still expects punishment for breaking rules." June closed the notebook. Her hands were trembling. "Where is she now?" "She's in a private wing of the hospital under 24-hour care. Dr. Patel's with her. We'll transition her into a long-term facility that specializes in recovery like this. But it's going to take time." "I want to be with her," June said. "And you will," Harrison replied. "But it has to happen slowly. Right now, you're a trigger something from a past she was told never existed. We have to rebuild her sense of identity carefully." "I understand," June said, even though it broke her. Harrison hesitated, then handed her another envelope. "We also found this," he said. "It's from Daniel's house, tucked into a drawer under a false bottom. It's not evidence exactly, but you should read it." June opened it. Inside was a letter. To June and Marcus. "If you're reading this, then you know. You know what I've done. I want you to understand, it was never about hate. It was about preservation. The world is poison. I've watched it ruin people, turn joy into bitterness. Children lose their innocence so fast now. I wanted to freeze time, to keep something beautiful unspoiled. Sophie was too much like you, June. Too strong, too smart. She never stopped fighting. I admired her for that. But I couldn't allow it. Emma was different. She let me in. She let me build a world where everything stayed still. I know you hate me. You should. But try to see what I built, not as cruelty but as a refuge. I loved him. In my own way. Daniel." June dropped the letter like it burned. "That man doesn't get to use the word love," she said. Back at the hospital, Marcus was already in Emma's room. She sat cross-legged on the bed, playing with a deck of cards one of the nurses had given her. She turned each one over slowly, naming the shapes, hesitating on the face cards. When June entered, she didn't look up, but she didn't flinch either. "Hi, sweetheart," June said gently. Emma looked up. "Do I have to take the sleepy juice now?" "No," June said, walking to the bed. "No more sleepy juice." Emma looked uncertain. "I brought something," June added. She pulled a small plastic box from her bag. Inside, a handful of butterfly stickers, the same kind Sophie had decorated her thermos with, the same ones they'd found faded and peeling after 14 years in the earth. Emma stared at them. "I remember these," she said slowly. June handed her one. "They were Sophie's favorite. You used to fight over them." Emma took the sticker, held it in her palm. "Did I win?" June smiled through the tears. "Sometimes." Emma placed the sticker on the back of her hand, carefully smoothing it down. Then she looked at June and tilted her head. "Are you the lady from my dreams?" "Yes," June said, her voice trembling. "I've always been." Emma reached out, slowly, and touched June's face. Her hand was light, unsure, but real. And then she whispered something June hadn't heard in 14 years. "Mama." June broke. Not with sobs, but with relief so sharp it felt like collapse. She wrapped her arms around Emma, holding her carefully, like something too precious to crush. Behind them, Marcus turned away, hand over his mouth. Emma didn't pull back. Not this time. The days that followed were slow and deliberate. Emma remained in the psychiatric wing of the hospital under constant supervision. A rotation of specialists came, thought trauma counselors, behavioral psychologists, speech therapists, each with a different tool, a different lens, all trying to pull the pieces of a fractured little girl back into the light. She'd spend mornings drawing, afternoons in soft therapy sessions, evenings sitting quietly by the window, watching the birds gather on the sill. She liked birds, said they never stayed in one place too long. Dr. Asha Patel remained her constant, patient, gentle, skilled at saying just enough and knowing when to stop. June and Marcus were allowed 2 short visits per day. At first, they were just observers' faces behind glass, familiar but foreign. But Emma no longer flinched. She no longer looked past them as though they weren't real. She was beginning to see them, and sometimes, when the lullaby played from the tiny tape recorder Dr. Patel had smuggled into their sessions, she'd hum along without realizing it. "She's coming back," Dr. Patel told June one afternoon. "It will never be all at once. There's no light switch moment. But I see it in her drawings, in how she tests boundaries, in how she sometimes forgets to call Daniel her father." They were in the observation room, watching Emma color a picture of a tree, not a bunker, not a gray square with a smiling sun. A real tree, with green leaves and a swing. "She dreams now," Dr. Patel said. "That's the first thing to return. It's usually the last thing they take." June studied her daughter through the glass. "What does she dream about?" "She won't say, but she always wakes up singing." Outside the hospital, Media pressure had reached a fever pitch. The press wanted interviews, photos, updates. Local outlets ran nightly specials titled "The Morrison Girl: Stolen Years." National journalists hovered near the perimeter fences, hoping for a glimpse. The sheriff's office declined all requests. "We're not turning this into a circus," Detective Harrison told June. "This isn't a victory lap. It's a rescue, and it's not over." Daniel's arraignment was scheduled for the following week. The courtroom was already under tight security. Harrison offered to spare the Morrisons from attending, but June refused. "I want him to see us," she said. "I want him to see what we look like when he doesn't control the narrative." Marcus agreed. "We sit front row." On the morning of the hearing, the courthouse steps were flooded with cameras and microphones. June wore black, not as a symbol of mourning but defiance. Marcus held her hand as they entered the courtroom. Inside, it was quiet. Clinical. Cold. Then the bailiff brought Daniel in. He looked thinner, older. His hair was longer, but the smirk hadn't changed. It was faint. Controlled. But there. He didn't look for his attorney. He didn't glance at the cameras. He looked straight at June. She didn't blink. The charges were read multiple counts of kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, assault, unlawful possession of a minor, murder in the second degree. The word murder hit the room like a dropped weight. The judge asked if he understood. Daniel nodded, voice soft. "Yes, Your Honor." He waived his right to a trial, pled guilty. His lawyer, a court-appointed defender, said Daniel had submitted a statement of confession in lieu of testimony, sparing the state the expense of a jury trial. In exchange, he would serve life without parole. Marcus leaned close to June. "He wanted this to be tidy." "Too bad," she whispered. As the session ended, the judge asked the family if they wished to speak. June stood. She approached the podium with trembling hands but a clear voice. "You took everything from us," she said. "You killed our daughter, and then you tried to erase the other. You made a world where only you existed, and now you have to live in one where you don't matter." She looked straight at him. "You don't win." Daniel didn't speak, but the smirk faded. Back at the hospital, Emma was sitting by the window again. When June walked in, she turned and smiled. "I made you something," she said. She held up a drawing herself, June, Marcus, and a taller girl with long hair and butterfly stickers on her arms. "Sophie," Emma said softly, "she was my sister, right?" "Yes," June said. "She always will be." Emma looked down at the picture. She liked lemonade and painting the bathtub. June laughed through the tears. She did. They sat together on the bed. "I don't remember all of it," Emma whispered. "But sometimes it comes back." "I do." "It will," June said. "In time." Emma looked up. "What if I forget again?" "You won't," June promised. "And even if you do, we'll remind you every day." Outside, the sun was breaking through the clouds. A new season was coming. And somewhere, beneath the trees, Sophie's voice still echoed in the laughter, in the wind, in the memories that refused to be buried. A year passed. Seasons came and went, each with its own rhythm, each leaving behind traces of healing, pain, and everything in between. The town that once whispered in hushed tones about the Morrison case slowly quieted. The camera crews left. The headlines faded. But inside the Morrison home, time moved differently. Emma was home. Not completely. Not in the way June remembered her. But she was home in body, in voice, in the way she asked questions now, careful and curious, like a girl testing the edges of the world for the first time. The doctors called it fragmented reintegration. They said that recovery wasn't a straight lint, was a spiral. You'd return to the same feelings again and again, but each time a little higher, a little stronger. June just called it life. Emma had started school again, 2 mornings a week, in a special program built for children who'd experienced long-term trauma. She was older than her classmates, but she didn't seem to mind. She liked stories, especially ones with twins or hidden doors. She didn't like basements. She didn't like shadows after 8 p.m. But she liked window light, bird song, the scent of peppermint tea, and most of all, she liked music. One Saturday afternoon, June walked past Emma's bedroom and paused. Inside, her daughter was singing softly, a new melody, one she'd made up herself. There were no words yet, just sounds, just hope, strung together like thread. June listened from the hallway, tears slipping down her cheeks. Sometimes the past returned in pieces. A drawing left on the tableau, little girl in a pink dress standing under the moon. A question during dinner, did Sophie like the stars? A nightmare in the middle of the night, Emma screaming for a man who no longer existed, whose name was now locked behind prison walls. But other times, the future slipped in quietly. Like the first time Emma asked if she could plant a flower in the backyard. Or the day she told Marcus, "You're my dad, right? Not pretend. Dad. Real." Or when she held her mother's hand at the grocery store and said, "I don't need to hide anymore." Ipsex. One afternoon the family drove out to the edge of the forest. To the tree. The one marked by searchers. The one that had for years stood as a silent witness to Sophie's final moments. June knelt in the damp earth and placed a small white stone at its base. Not engraved, not ceremonial, just present. Emma stood beside her. "She was brave," Emma whispered. "She was," June replied. "She always was." They didn't stay long. They didn't need to. The past didn't need to be rewritten, just remembered. And so they did. In the quiet. In the drawings on the fridge. In the lullaby that never quite left their lips. Daniel Morrison died 2 years into his sentence. Stroke. No visitors. No ceremony. His death was a headline for a day, then gone. June didn't tell Emma until months later, when she asked why the dreams had finally stopped. "You're safe now," June had said, "even in your sleep." They moved the following spring. Not far. Just enough to breathe. A smaller home. Fewer memories in the walls. But the photo albums came with them. So did Sophie's shoes. So did the tape recorder with the lullaby. So did Emma. In full. In pieces. In everything between. And on warm nights, when the wind was soft and the windows were open, Emma would stand at the edge of the porch and listen. Sometimes to birds. Sometimes to her mother's voice in song. And sometimes to nothing at all. But even that was okay. Because silence now was not absence. It was peace. It was what remained.